Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was thinking about what sort of classic stories had yet been told in live action or hadn't been told in a while, sort of were ripe for retelling. And I was thinking of a lot of different stories, and all the different stories were some version of the Cinderella story. And so I started thinking, like, well, what's the ur-text? Like, what's the original Cinderella, actually Cinderella? And as much as we have the classic animated movie and a few things that have sort of tread in the world live action, there hasn't been the definitive Disney live action Cinderella movie. And so, a friend of mine and I started talking about it, and I brought it in to Disney, and they said, that's actually a good idea. We sort of have the technical ability, the visual effects now to tell the transformation in a way live action that we never would have been able to do 5, 10, 20 years ago. And it is just a kind of amazing thing that Disney had yet to make their Disney's Cinderella live action movie. I think Cinderella is one of the classic stories of all time that people know across different cultures, different languages, different generations. There's certain things that the Cinderella name evokes for people. I think it's certainly the evil stepmother. It's going to the ball. It's losing your slipper at the ball as the clock strikes midnight. And then it's the prince, looking for the girl or the princess who fits the slipper she left behind. Other than that, which are sort of the basic tenets of Cinderella, I think the rest of it's sort of open to interpretation. And so we definitely wanted to maintain the basic tenets of the classic Cinderella story. And then we also wanted to deepen it sort of emotionally and in terms of the backstories and the sort of emotional present stories for the other characters. Because in the original film, it's really Cinderella's story. You don't get a sense of who the prince is. You don't get a sense of who the king is. You get a somewhat one-dimensional sense of the evil stepmother. You don't know what made her evil. You don't know the life that she had before she was a stepmother. So we wanted to fill in all of those areas in a way that people hadn't seen on film before, to sort of round out the origin story of Cinderella. I hope what the audience takes away from it is what people have always loved about Cinderella, is that it's an incredibly inspiring story about one person's courage and belief despite the world showing and telling her otherwise. And that people feel like, just no matter what their circumstance is, that if they sort of hold on to their ideals and hope, there is a chance for them to, rise up. And I also think, hopefully, this will give people a new perception of, the characters they've known for so long that they're getting to know for the first time again. I would love for people to come out of this movie and feel like, oh, that was the evil stepmother that I've always known, but more interesting, more complex than I would have imagined. It's almost like if you know somebody in a superficial level and you get to spend more time with them, which is what we get to do in this movie because it's longer. You spend more time with them, you get to know them better. And you are surprised by their complexities and contradictions, and often by the things in them that are very similar to what you have in yourself. And I hope that the audience feels like they can connect to the prince, to Cinderella, to her sisters, to the evil stepmother, to everybody in the movie, because they all carry some sort of human aspect to them that we haven't totally seen in a Cinderella story before.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,